we're in the car dealer, at the Honda dealer, and Jar of Hearts is playing in the dealer, comes on the radio, while the car salesman comes back to tell me, unfortunately, they're not going to accept my credit for the minivan. And I remember like, dude, my song is playing on the radio in your car dealer. I got royalties coming. I can afford the stupid minivan.
It's Chris Sernel, and welcome to another episode of No Smokin' We're Rollin', the podcast where we do a deep dive into the creative process behind songs that I love. Today's guest can do it all. He's a singer, songwriter, touring artist, pianist, producer, teacher, TED talker, husband, father, marathoner, skier, comedian, and all-around great guy. Oh, and he also happened to write one of the most iconic and timeless songs of the past 20 years. His You Did Me Wrong piano ballad, co-written with artist Christina Perri, details a serial dater who breaks hearts and collects them in a very unique way. The song is, of course, Jar of Hearts, which has been streamed something like 1 billion times, sold like 10 million copies worldwide, was a top 10 hit everywhere in the world, has been covered by the likes of 21 Pilots and hundreds of other artists. It's been on Glee, The Voice, Pretty Little Liars, performed live on every talk show in existence, and of course made its huge debut on So You Think You Can Dance back in the summer of 2010. Here to chat about the creation of Jar of Hearts, I've got my good friend, Drew Lawrence. Drew, welcome.
Hey, Chris, thank you so much. Man, that was some intro. I'm flattered, baby. I got to say, you are quite the most awesome guy as well. I so enjoyed all of the sessions we did together back in the day, and always just such a positive force in the studio. And yeah, dude, it's great to see you. Thank you for having me.
And who do you think you are, running around leaving scars?
Where does the story of this song start for you and with you?
I was about 7 years into my career trying to have any kind of success in LA as a performer, of just utterly failing. One time, I had my bandmates come tell me that they couldn't play with me anymore because they were going to go out on tour with their other friend, Ryan Tedder, and I still see my old band. Yeah. And I started the story here because a lot of people, want to know like how you get your start, and the answer is you just start doing it. You start writing with anybody that'll write with you. You get into any room you can. And I worked with a lot of artists that had no backing. All they had was a passion and some talent. I just started getting out there. I went to open mics. And all of this eventually led to Jar of Hearts. When I got the phone call to work with Christina, it was through another producer who also had no success. Both of us were just kind of clawing our way, through and working with anybody that would work with us. She was 23. She was a waitress. She had no record deal. And she had never played a live show. Okay. Christina's the real deal. She's raw. And she has stories. She's a lovely character. Her personality is just, she's a shining light. She's a great company. So anyways, I'm going to block a week of my life out here to work with this artist who has nothing in terms of no backing at all. And I think Jar of Hearts was the third song we wrote. And she had the story from this breakup. So it was just a nice pairing of this raw story full of emotion and where I was in my experience as being able to help her put it into song form with the chord structure and the melodies. After that first day of putting the structure together, I had some what I call jibber jabber recordings that I sent her, and one of them was I sent this like body down, body down, body got it now. And then she came back the next day with some words, and we went back and forth with the words, and if you want, I can tell you a story that it's humbling for me.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So the lyric in this song that everybody loves, which is, you're going to catch a cold
Yeah.
from the ice inside your soul.
Yeah.
This is
Right.
Christina's lyric. And I fought with her on that lyric because I just couldn't, I couldn't get the visual of just like a runny nose out of my head. And I just thought like catching a cold sounds like such a gross thing to think about. And so I lost that battle. And it turns out that it was a brilliant lyric. And so I'm humbly saying that I was wrong on that one.
You had the foresight and the knowledge to know that you got to lose some battles. Like some people fight tooth and nail, but you let that one go. That's huge.
Well, I think it's a really, really important, an extremely important part of collaboration. And I do call it the passion gauge. I'm extremely inspired by passion, by passionate artists, by people that really feel something. And I'm also aware that I don't always have all the answers and I'm not always right. And if somebody's really passionate about something and it's not absolutely terrible, I didn't think that Ice Inside Your Soul, I didn't think that lyric was terrible. I was just struggling with the visual. I just something about the catching a cold just sounded so gross to me. Anyways, but yeah, it's really important to be open with your collaborators and also to realize too, you can come back to it. You know, don't fight a battle until to the point where you've completely suffocated all creativity in that moment. You can always circle back to it later if wait till like the other people are feeling the same thing, you get some more feedback, and then maybe you can readdress it. But that was one where I was humbly wrong, and I'm glad I was wrong because so many people have loved that lyric, and so I'm proud to say that they're all right and I'm wrong on that one.
Did you guys? So was this a couple day process, or like from like not recording process, but from writing? Was it done in 1 day, 2 days, over time? It sounds like you went back and forth, maybe overnight, at least 1 day.
Well, that was kind of nice. I really like when I'm working with artists to have more than one session because it's really nice to not feel like you have to have it all banged out in 1 day. Of course, you and I have written some great songs together in 1 day. It's definitely possible. People do it all the time. But especially when you're working with the artist, and it's really important to make sure that artist is it's exactly the way they want to say it, and that it relates to them as an artist. So it was with Jar of Hearts. I think there was 3 different times we worked on that song in the course of a week, where we did multiple songs, 3 of which are on her first album, and I think we wrote about 5 or 6 songs during that time period. So yeah, and it was nice for her as an artist to go home and spend some time with the words, and I helped her too with the placement of where some of the words were, and also I helped her with the lyrics as well. But it definitely is her story. Yeah.
Who had the title Jar of Hearts?
I have to give this one to Christina too. She had it. I can take a little credit. She had a jar full of hearts.
Oh yeah.
So I got rid of the word full.
That's huge. That's actually a big distinction. I think jar full of hearts is a little clumsy. Jar of Hearts is very, like, you can grab that. And
she didn't have it in the chorus, if I remember correctly too. It wasn't placed, like the format of the chorus wasn't the way it is. I mean, she didn't have that placement of it in the where the lyrics were. But yeah, that was her title.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I think about all the breakup, You Did Me Wrong songs and all that, and there's a lot of great ones since you've been gone. There's a ton of them. But the title of this is so visual and so like it makes you want to listen to that song instantly.
It's one of the principles I'm always telling everybody I work with. And it's, obviously try to say something that's never been said before. And even better yet, say something familiar that's never been said before. And that's, if you can accomplish that, you're doing it. But you just never know. I mean, these these big artists that won't work with an unsigned artist or an artist that doesn't have a billion Spotify plays, like you might be missing out. You might have an artist that has a title like Jar of Hearts that you could work with, and you're going to miss out.
Did you guys know you had something with that song, or when did it become like, hey, I got something here, we got something here?
I remember the moment. When we wrote this song, I just thought it was a pretty piano ballad. And by the way, the music industry would have thought the same thing, and none of them would have done anything with it. I guarantee you.
Right.
If we had taken that song to every record label in Los Angeles and taken it to all those labels, not one of them would have signed Christina, who had, no big following, had never played live shows, didn't have any experience. So what happened was, as a lot of people know, is that the song got put on that TV show, So You Think You Can Dance. And Christina's best friend knew the choreographer. They decided this would be a beautiful song to dance to with interpretive dancing, right? And so we got word literally within a week or two of writing the song and they had heard the demo, I believe, and the song was going to be placed on that show. And of course, it's a piano ballad, so the demo is not far off from the final production because it's piano vocal. But what happened is my production partner, Barrett, had some brilliant friends of ours come in and do the string arrangements. Once those strings were put on that record, and once it was mixed a bit, I do remember the moment I was driving through Sherman Oaks here in Los Angeles, and I listened back to that mix, and I definitely had an oh shit moment. But I will say I've had that with a number of songs, and they didn't do what Jar Hearts did because there's another piece. It's because the stars aligned. As I mentioned before, you don't have the TV show, the industry is not going to sign an art, and especially in today's climate, if they don't have millions of Spotify plays, it's tough to get any notice. And so it was the placement of that song on the TV show, which, by the way, charted on the Billboard charts at 45 that week with no radio. That was just in the time of iTunes when people were buying downloads and it charted. And that's when the music industry took notice and all came calling.
Question is, you didn't know you had a hit when you guys finished the song or when you were working on the song. You thought it was just one of 5 or 6 that felt good, right? Felt like a good song. Uh-huh. But it's weird how, like, as writers, we're in the room, we're writing a song, and like you're like, do I trust? Like you said, sometimes you think something's a hit, it's usually not. But it was just a beautiful song, right?
I felt like you had to have an up-tempo to have a hit. I mean, how many big ballads are hits that are not written by huge stars? I mean, how many careers are broken on the back of a ballad? It's just not. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. And oftentimes a lot of the big ballad hits are it's Adele or it's Rihanna, and they're well into their careers and they're well into an album before you ever hear a ballad, And so I thought the song was beautiful. I didn't think it was going to be a game changer because it defies all the rules. You don't break a career on a piano ballad, or at least you didn't at that time in 2010. It wasn't a thing.
It feels like Drew Lawrence piano playing, like lower. You love the lower register of the piano. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. I did. I pretty much did the bulk of the music for this song. All the chord changes and the spooky. You were talking about the Beatles earlier, and the bridge of this song has so that's very much inspired by in college they called those line cliches, but it's basically songs like Michelle use that sort of and like Gershwin used a lot of these kind of a lot of these Broadway songs use it. So there's a lot of kind of classical elements here, and I was at the time kind of in a prog rock band, so there's an end of the end of Jar Hearts is a bit proggy, really. It's like this, it's this like 4 minor chord that's like walking up a spooky kind of Danny Elfman kind of bass thing going on. It's spooky, which is great because her vibe was, and I wasn't even thinking about this at the time, but her vibe was a little bit goth. She's got lots of tattoos and she had a cool kind of hairstyle going and so it matched her. And then the video that they did was really spooky as well. And so it all kind of came together nicely. But that's another timing thing. I was just in a place as an artist where I was writing a lot of spooky kind of stuff. So.
That's the beauty of it. As I was really listening and digging, and I'm hearing all these like little, like you said, the ending with the sort of, I didn't think Prague, but you're right, like Prague, the bridge is like it changes gears, and it's beautiful because it's like, oh, another part of the song. These days, who even writes a bridge, right? It's just like, yeah, get on with this, just finish after the second chorus at this point. But it's like you totally switch gears, and it's just, oh, there's a new element to this song, and then the way she's saying the outro chorus around those chords, it's just like new ways to present all the hooks, and it takes you on a journey. Like I said, a lot of people don't write songs like that anymore because it doesn't. Again, you hit 2:30 and you're like, okay, we better end this song now.
Yeah.
But you guys took it all the way.
Yeah, it was another reason why I didn't think it was going to be heavy. I think it's over 4 minutes long.
Yeah,
that's usually also a no.
Can't do that.
Radio. Yeah,
that's hilarious. Was it two separate times between writing the song and then going in and recording it for real? Was it like?
Yeah, we just wrote it in a living room, and then we went back a few days later and laid down the that's actually a MIDI piano too, which blows my mind because I think in retrospect, like a song like that, had we known, I mean, it was done hastily because we had to get it ready for this TV show.
Right.
But I think in retrospect, we would have gone to a nice studio and played a proper concert grand piano for that song. But no, nobody's about it.
It would have screwed up the vibe somehow if you would have tried to make it too perfect. I think you got to just have the MIDI grand and.
I love what you just said. Gosh, I really, really believe that there's magic in imperfection with recordings and performances, and that we should nurture imperfection when it's done in a way that just feels real. That's great. Yeah, it didn't need to be perfect. It just needed to be that moment, and it needed to be raw. And I think it does, accomplish that.
It works. When she was cutting her vocal on what became the record, were you there with her on that, or was that something she did on her own?
Yeah, absolutely. Where Christina wins is just her sincerity and her emotion. Christina had no problem selling her story. I mean, you just believed it, and when that emotion is so raw and honest, it's not very hard. As long as you sing in tune, and she doesn't have a big voice. She has, but she has a real a beautiful tone, but it's really just that emotion, that raw emotion, and you just believe her.
Totally.
A lot of people don't realize the range of Jar Hearts, but she's got a great range. When I was working with her on that verse melody, we had her getting down there pretty low. She starts on a low G below middle C, which is a low range for a female, especially. And then by the end, she's way up on a high B flat. So she's covering at least a tenth of range there, which is a lot of work. Yeah.
The first line of the song, it's so low, it's almost a little too low for her, but you're instantly just pulled into it.
Starting the song with just banging a big low minor chord, it's gonna get people's attention. I do remember Christina had kind of started this song, what became this song, and she had the guitar. And she was starting the song on major. It was a whole different song, really. We kept the Jar of Hearts title. That became like that. We kept it. But the story was the same story, but it really morphed into a completely different piece of music because she was kind of strumming a one chord, and then she was going to three major, which that's Radiohead's like Creep. For those of you that aren't familiar with music theory, it's like it was real. Indie and sassy, and it didn't feel like I don't know. We kept exploring. I'll put it that way, and landed on this relative minor. And I've always just been a fan of the way the relative minor leads into the major. A few years after Jar of Hearts, Wrecking Ball was released, and I realized that the whole song is almost a template of Jar of Hearts. It's just in a different key, but it's the same, follows the exact. And it's not like that we invented that, but it's not something that's used in a lot of songs.
The rhyme scheme in the verse, I know I can't take one more step towards you, because all that's waiting is regret. Like, the rhymes are not, it's not just like end of the line. You're like, step and regret rhyme, although there's the towards you. And then the same thing, I'm not your ghost anymore. You lost the love I loved the most. Interesting. I mean, that's not like, I don't know if you guys planned it, but it's brilliant.
It's an interesting process with collaboration. A lot of times I'll work with an artist and they'll have some words. And I love working from this standpoint. And I'm a melody guy. I'm also a lyricist, but I'll take the words and I'll see some pieces of it and I'll try to make it fit a melody that I'm hearing in my head. And oftentimes that means getting rid of a bunch of words or adding some words, but keeping kind of the raw content of what they said and just kind of shifting it so that it fits into whatever and I get a melody in my head and I can't, if I get attached to them. So then I'm trying to fit things into this. I want it to work, and I believe, if I recall right, that was the process there. And order of business is to stay true to that content and then try to fit it into this inspired melody. And then rhyme was probably last on the list because it was more important that we kept that content and that we made that melody kind of spooky and eerie and then you're right. The rhyme scheme's a little unorthodox, and I haven't really put much thought into that. I just knew there were rhymes in there, and I didn't think about it too much.
It's like, it sounds good, don't overthink it, and right, it's always worked for me. But then as I'm reading it, I'm like, it's a little free rhymey, but no, there's some internal rhymes and things like that, and yeah, it sort of goes back to don't overthink it too. If it sounds good and it works, just do it.
I always kind of err on the side of it's okay not to rhyme too. Sometimes songs sound a little too contrived, or they sound like they're trying too hard with like just perfect rhyme. Kind of goes. Yeah. This is just me as an artist and as a writer. Like, I always err a little on the side of a little imperfect, a little bit of pushing your nose up against the rules. So I kind of like when I hear things that break the rules.
That's the Julia Michaels approach. She used to say that she would always she would try to find off rhymes before true rhymes whenever possible. And who's going to argue with her, right? So many singers can make words sound like they rhyme too, and they're not even close.
And there's something about it that just makes it even cooler sometimes. That it's not right on. It's like, oh, they got away with that. And if anything, it perks your ears up because it's not expected. You're expecting the perfect rhyme, and then you get something that's out of left field, and you're like, wait a minute, what was that? And I would say, with everybody more distracted than they've ever been in the history of humans, we need to have little things that poke out and grab people's attention as writers.
Who wrote that horrible line that doesn't rhyme there? But at least they're listening, right? Yeah, they're paying attention and asking a question.
I love that.
Totally. Another one of the lyric that it's so good to me. The line, "Who do you think you are?" So it's such a powerful phrase. That's something you go up to somebody aggressively and you're like, who do you think you are? So it's an aggressive phrase, but the way she sings it is the first time especially is so it's sweet and the melody's so beautiful.
There's a lot of poetry in the Jar of Hearts and the Catch a Cold from the Ice in Your Soul and all this. And you gotta have, if you're gonna have those real poetic lines, you gotta balance them with some real conversational lines. You gotta balance it with what would two characters in a movie, what would they actually say in that moment? And I think that's why that line ended up prefacing some of the more poetic lines, because it's you're in a movie scene, what are those characters actually going to say? They're not going to say, "You're going to catch a cold from the ice inside your soul." They're not going to say that, right? they're going to say, who do you think you are? Seriously, like, don't come back here. They're going to say those kinds of lines. But at first, if the whole song was only those conversational lines, there's plenty of songs that work that way too. That's just a different style. I always say if you're going to get away with the poetry and the imagery, you're going to have some knock 'em over conversational lines kind of mixed in there. It's the same with Wrecking Ball, our sister song. You've got to have, I came in like a wrecking ball. I never fell so hard in love. Okay, now you know exactly. Or if you take Flowers, I can buy myself flowers. It's like, okay, that's cool. But then the big killer line is, I can love me better than you can. And you get one of those lines that just knocks it home. You know exactly what the whole song's about with that line, right?
My old publisher used to, like, conversational is one of the key things, but he also would say, like, put in some zingers, get a couple of great lines in there too that are not quite as obvious. And then you've, like, exactly what you said, give people enough to hold on to that they recognize, but then throw Jar of Hearts and then throw something about catching a cold because you've got ice inside your soul. And it's brilliant. And you're right. This is the perfect blend of those two things. And people blow it all the time, right? They go either two one way or two the other way. If it's too poetic, people can't relate to it. If it's too conversational, it's generic, right? So
you better have such an amazing voice to get away with the generic. Like then the voice is what wins in that scenario, right?
Right. So this is you've got a song on a TV show, and kind of a big deal. Like, cool, tell my friends we're gonna all watch it, and just like walk me through that again, the timeline a little bit of from that to like the next week it's top 40 on iTunes, and then what it's like having a huge hit song. Yeah, tell me about some of that.
It was really a roller coaster ride because seeing it on TV, seeing it chart on the Billboard charts was absolutely, it was amazing. I mean, seeing it chart nationally at 45 on the Hot 100 with no radio play, it was just crazy. And then within a week, the phone starts ringing, and I don't know how these characters even got my phone number, but I'm getting calls from top publishing companies, from companies like Universal and Sony and Warner, and I'm not getting calls from low-level A&R. I'm getting calls from like the top dogs at these companies, and they're
Crazy.
calling me on my cell phone, and I'm thinking to myself, what is going on here? And then the song was beginning to disappear. It had its big moment, it sold a bunch, and then it was going down, and then it was gone. And it was an interesting feeling because you thought, well, wow, I guess that's it. I guess that's it. We had our moment, and it's all done. And why do these publishing companies want to sign me just based off of a TV placement? I thought maybe I don't know. Maybe they think I've got some sort of magic that they want a piece of. What turned out was that actually they were aware that she was going to sign a record deal, and coincidentally, I don't mind saying this publicly, but Warner Music signed her, Atlantic Records, and Warner Music's publishing deal seemed to be way out of the park compared to all the others. And so they knew something the other companies didn't know. And what they knew is that she was going to she is signing to Atlantic Records, part of Warner Music Group, and they knew they were going to invest millions in a radio campaign. So what happened was I ended up signing with Warner, partly because I thought everything was going away because the song had disappeared. Christina signed and with Atlantic, and 6 months later, the song magically started to appear on radio. So this was not an organic situation where TV show to radio, all these DJs across the country just start playing it. That did not happen. Warner Music threw at least $1 million, maybe $2 million into a marketing campaign to all the radio stations and began the process of heavily pitching the song to radio. And from there on, it started to climb up the charts, and that was another 4 or 5 month process. So it was nearly a year from the time we wrote it to where it peaked on the Billboard charts. And it was also very fascinating to watch how that works, because there was nothing organic about it at all at that point.
What was it like having a song on the radio that with all that, just like, I mean, it probably made top 10 almost everywhere in the world, I think. What was that like?
You know, it was a pretty awesome feeling, I got to say. I remember the first time I heard it on the radio. It's one of those things you remember. I was in a car with friends too, and we were going out in Hollywood, and it came on, and we just cranked it up, and it was just such a cool moment. So, and it would pop up in different places. I'll tell you one quick funny story. I remember in 2012, we had just bought our home here just northwest of Los Angeles, and we had 2 kids now, and we were at the Honda dealer trying to get a minivan. So my credit is maxed because I just bought a house, and we had to remodel it. So like all my cards are just, maxed, but I've got, I'm trying to get this minivan. And we're in the car dealer at the Honda dealer, and Jar of Hearts is playing in the dealer, comes on the radio, while the car salesman comes back to tell me, unfortunately, they're not going to accept my credit for the minivan. And I remember like, dude, my song is playing on the radio in your car dealer. I got royalties coming. I can afford the stupid minivan.
Did that work?
No, we had to go to a different dealer, but we did finally get the minivan. But it was.
Listen to my song. Come on, you guys only play the hits here.
I get denied the minivan while my song's playing on the radio.
In 12 months, I could buy 10 of these. Come on.
Yeah, that was a funny moment.
That's amazing. That's amazing. You're kind of answering this question, but I want to ask. I ask everybody this. Like, you've kind of answered it. How did this song change your life? I finally had the backing to write full time, and I finally had the opportunity to get into bigger rooms, and so it began a new chapter of my life that was very foreign to me. And it was writing every day, 5 days a week. And I remember early on, I wrote down in a journal that I want to write in New York, Nashville, and London. And six months later, I had written in all those places, and I had met all these amazing people. So I look back at it as a real big time of growth. And once again, and this seems to be a theme in my life, I was a big fish in a small pond in my small town growing up. I went to Berklee College of Music and was completely humbled and realized I had a lot of work to do. Same with this writing full-time thing. I thought I was writing all these great songs with kind of all these, unknown artists in Hollywood and with my band. And then I had a hit, and then I realized that there's people that have been doing this for 20 years and they are amazing. And going to Nashville, especially within a year of the publishing deal, I was at a Carrie Underwood writing camp and for her album. And I didn't end up getting a cut on that album, but I did work with some of the top Nashville brass, writers like Ashley Gorley and Jaron Johnston and some of these huge writers. And wow. So yeah, my life changed on many levels. All of a sudden I'm doing this full time. All of a sudden I'm getting really humbled. And, there was a lot of those sessions that I was a bit anxious. I was kind of in over my head a little bit in the beginning, if I'm totally honest. And it was
it was really eye-opening, and I look back on it now with a lot of gratitude because I learned from the best, and eventually, more cuts started coming, and it was a fun period, and that went on for about 7 years. When you have a big hit, you definitely have about a 2 to 3 year. If it's a kind of song, Jar of Hearts is also kind of one of those songs that lingers, because there's all kinds of different hits. You could have a meteoric one that just kind of disappears. Jar of Hearts is like that grocery store elevator song that just doesn't go away. So it lingered a little longer. But you definitely have like a window where you can really get into pretty much any room during that time, which was really cool. Yeah, world travel, humbling sessions with top dogs, and a lot of repetitions. It was really an intense period of just writing on demand all the time. I remember just like I always had this notebook, and I was just always pushing myself, like, what's another concept? What's another title? And just, I never wanted to show up empty-handed, or I would start melodies and chord progressions and just try to bring things in all the time. And it's a big ask to, have that kind of, creativity on demand every single day, as because you were in that hustle too, just in the grind. And I think especially when we were doing it, it was a different grind than it is today in some ways, because there was still a lot of outside songs being considered for projects, and it was just the industry had a different look back then. But I feel like those early 2010s were a very intense kind of hustle time period in the writing world.
Right. And when you've got a hit, like anybody, like people that have had hits I talk to, it's like, yeah, that next couple years, your publisher, your man, everybody's like, can you do 3 sessions a day? Can you, like they just want you in every room ever, and it's no skin off their nose if you never see your family. They just want you to be working. And like you said, you're stockpiling ideas, but man, that can get exhausting too. So it's like, it's boot camp. You probably grew more as a writer and professional than ever before by doing that. But it's not something you can do forever either.
No, but I do look back now in retrospect, and I'm grateful for all those reps. And boot camp's a great way to describe it, because it did feel like that sometimes. I would say to people that are coming up the ranks or in that same scenario, the only thing I would do differently is I would have, especially after a few years, I would have learned how to say no a little more and make sure you're choosing the projects that really resonate with what you want to be doing. And I was a little bit of a yes man, and I think that kind of contributed to a little burnout after a while.
You remind me of me. And I remember Rob once told me that he's like, when I was talking to Rob and I was coming to LA, he's like, you have to meet my friend Drew. You guys are like sort of the same person, and just you're different, but you're like the same people, and you'll get along great. You guys, and of course, we hit it off and all that. I was the same way, like yes man. Always say yes and all that. And it's interesting. I work with some younger kids now who are like early 20s, and I'll be sending them projects and they'll tell me no. And I'm like, no, how dare you? But then I'm like, no, this is smart. It's like you said, it's either not resonating with them. It's, it's people I work with, but they have better boundaries than I think maybe are sort of that era of, people like us that worked. And I'm with you, like the reps are important, the boot camp was important, but I wish I would have said no a few more times to just projects that in hindsight were like, why was I working in this, on this hip hop, stuff that's just not me. I didn't get it. I didn't feel comfortable. Some trips I took, like, why did I do those? But yeah, I think a lot of the kids feel like they're better at saying no today than we were.
Yeah. It's a little more artist driven now too. I feel like it's really about the artist, being in the room with the artist. And it's funny because I've come full circle, and I was mentioning to you earlier before we started the podcast that I'm really excited about some of the young artists I'm developing, but I'm coming full circle back to how I had any success in the first place, which was working with a unknown, inexperienced talent, undeniable talent, but unknown, inexperienced. And when you find those folks and they have that passion and that raw talent, it's special and it's rewarding beyond financial, because you're making the handful of young artists I'm developing never cease to amaze me, and their voices are so special, and their perspective as artists, their perspective on the world is so unique and not the way a 40-something-year-old dude sees the world. And I think it's that marriage of that raw, unapologetic talent that meets somebody with lots of years of experience under their belt, who is also open-minded and respectful of their craft and their artistry, and it gives them a safe place to grow and blossom, which is what I pride myself doing. I'm not trying to make them something they're not. I'm just trying to add to what they're already doing, in any way I can. And I think you're going to see that same sort of that recipe with a lot of successful acts. If you look at Olivia Rodrigo, if I'm not mistaken, those songs are all co-written with a 40-something songwriter, Dan Nigro or something like that, I think is his name. There's a reason, because she's that raw, amazing talent, and he's bringing in kind of a lot of years of experience, and it's a great combo.
Even go back to Taylor Swift with probably Liz Rose in the early days. Taylor had amazing ideas and great lyrics, and Liz Rose, I don't know, 34, however old she was at the time, was that guiding hand to kind of to do that. And I think you're absolutely right. It's like, but a lot of older people also are like set in their ways, and like you said, you got to give them space to breathe and be who they are and do what they do. What's something that everybody misses about the song that you love? Maybe it's even what you were talking about before, the outro where you get kind of nutty with some of the chord inversions.
I think that is it. The outro's whack. I mean, like, nobody puts that kind of stuff in a pop song. It is. It's totally Danny Elfman. It's that spooky 4 minor chord that's just going up this dark, like Baroque sounding, scale. And it's really the classical inspiration that probably a lot of people don't pick up on so much, maybe, but there's more to this particular piece and that's inspired by classical music, even romantic music. There's Beethoven sonata inspiration in this, a little more so than a lot of other pop ballads. Just say diatonic's the word for listeners, that when a song doesn't use any whack sounding chords. That's all the chords are in the key. So Your Heart has a lot of wacky chords. And for as much as you can get away with in a pop song. And I like that we use some of those, even though there's only a few of them, it's just kind of that ticks my box for, my interest in kind of like chord theory and classical music and whatnot. I think subconsciously that's maybe why that song's had a little longer haul, because there are some it kind of pushes the boundaries a little bit in terms of what's usually allowed in pop writing. And we just went for it because we didn't have anybody telling us we couldn't. And that's also really nice. That's one that is huge. Yeah.
You mean you didn't have A&R people from a record label sitting in the room with you while you're writing the song, giving you feedback on the fly, like some of my old publishers?
Yeah, I think it's possible too that some of those cool parts of that song could have been, taken out by A&R people, and it's just cool that we got to get it out before anybody's hands got on it to change it. So that's special too.
I love that.
That's another good reason to work with up and coming talent, where you can have a little more control over the product rather than the industry breathing down your neck.
You talked about this. It feels like a timeless song. I mean, obviously, when you the less production you add to a song, the better. Like if you produce that up, it could have put it in 2010 firmly. It feels so timeless. It feels like you said, there's the classical moments, the Danny Elfman moments. I listened to it, I'm listening to it preparing for this podcast, and I'm like, this could be on the radio right now. It works right now. There's nothing dated about it. I think in 50 years it's going to still work. It's going to be one of those, and that's amazing. One like side question to that is, does it still get syncs? Does it still end up in TV? It seems like it should and probably does. I don't actually own live TV, so I don't watch much. But
yeah, well, first of all, I want to say, if you know any big artists that want to put that song back on the radio, I've got 3 kids going to college sometime in the next 10 years. So let them, please. The song has taken on a life of its own in terms of being synced in all these singing competition shows.
Glee,
every year,
Voice, yeah.
Every year, it's The Voice, it's American Idol, it's American, and then, you know, multiple countries around the world have their version of The Voice and their version of it. So it's constantly getting play in that world, which is why it's you know, been just this gift that keeps giving. It's one of these copyrights that's kind of plateaued. You know, it had its big few years, and then it just kind of just plateaued, and it hasn't really lost a lot of value in the last, I mean, dare I say, like the last 7 or 8 years. It's just kind of been a steady stream of you know, smaller syncs and whatnot that have just kind of kept it right at the same level. So it's yeah, it's been a great gift.
I'm working on my cover of it, so I'll see if I can blow it up again and take it back to the top 40.
Take it on up, brother. I love it.
Are there any parts of the song that, if you listen to it today, you would change?
Maybe for my own selfish reasons, because I enjoy going to studios and playing $50,000 pianos. I would have loved to have cut it on a real piano. But I'm pleased with the way it was written, and I wouldn't change it. I'd leave it the way it is.
A few lightning round questions for you. So
okay.
Give me your quick answers on these. Okay. What is your favorite song of the current moment right now?
I like that Jake character, Golden Hour. I like that song.
Favorite album of all time?
I love OK Computer by Radiohead. That's one I go back to often. I love Joni Mitchell's Blue. I love Pearl Jam's Yield. I'm sure most people don't have that on their top 3. So I have to choose one. As an artist, it's Radiohead's OK Computer. As a songwriter, it's Blue, Joni Mitchell.
Who's your guilty pleasure artist or band?
Maybe Harry Styles. I feel I can get into Harry. I think it's fun. Yeah, there you go.
I was just working on something and I, like, they're like, we need something it's for a kids TV show. And they said we need something that's pop but a little cooler. And I'm like, Harry Styles kind of fits that. Like it's guilty pleasure, but he's like, you know, As It Was is like kind of a cool indie pop song. Like there's a lot of cool
indie song, right?
Yeah.
I'm into it. And I just say, I mean, it's not that guilty when it won the Grammy for the best album of the year, but it's like it's for me, it is, as a 40-something dude that's in like an Americana band. It's not generally something that most people in my circles listen to, but I appreciate it. I appreciate the production and the songwriting. It's great.
Yeah. What song of yours that has been released that people could actually find are people sleeping on?
Well, this sounds a little narcissistic, but I really like the single that my group, The Dales, put out last year called "Don't Tell Me How to Hurt."
I love it.
It's a song I'm really proud of, and I wish that I knew how to get this to more people. But it's something I'm really proud of. It's a message too in that song that to just be careful before you judge people. You know, you just don't know what they're going through, and it's I think it's a message that's a healing message for society, and I love when it gets rocking at the end when we play full band, and the song just is like this big crescendo. We actually sing that "Don't Tell Me How to Hurt" like, I don't know, 20 times in a row at the end, and it just keeps looping, and more elements of production keep coming in, and it's a really I just in general I like pieces of music that take you on a dynamic crescendo throughout the whole piece, and that one starts really mellow and ends full on rocking. So
yeah, I love it. It's a brilliant song. I was on a walk last night. I listened to Jar Hearts just to prep again one more time, and then I pulled that one up. I'm like, this is great. Listen to it again. This is great. Listen to it again. So you got at least 3 or 4 plays from me last night on it.
Woo! Thank you, Chris. much appreciated. Much gratitude.
I got one last lightning round question. What band have you changed your mind on, or band artist have you changed your mind on in the last 5 years? Like you used to hate it and you've come around on it and maybe really love it now.
I mean, I'm late to the Taylor Swift party, folks, but I do like what she's doing now. Since 1989 on, I'm really into her stuff. I wasn't into the earlier stuff. So I might T-Swifty you here.
Okay.
Maybe Biebs. I like the new Bieber stuff too. I like the way he's evolved. So yeah.
Favorite album was OK Computer, and the new favorite artists are the Biebs and Taylor Swift.
There you go.
That's great. Let's talk a little bit just what we talked off camera a little bit before about what you're working on now. Tell people a little bit about your band, the Dales, too. I'd love to tell people where they can check you out as well on some of the new things you're working on.
So yeah, the Dales are on Spotify, and we're touring. We're going to have a summer tour on the couple. We have some California shows coming up, and then we have the East Coast in August. So that's something that's cooking this summer, and I have some young artists that I'm really excited about, and we don't have any releases yet. So you're going to have to stay tuned for these guys as they come out. There's a group called Love and Lightning, and I've been working with them. We have a single coming out in later on this month in May. There's a band called Velvet Chains that I've done a couple albums with, and they're releasing new music all the time. They just got back from touring South America with Stone Temple Pilots. Awesome. And it's just really fun, like Guns N' Roses meets like Velvet Revolver kind of stuff. And I'm really enjoying that project. And then I've also been scoring some plays, and there's a one-woman play that was off Broadway last year that I scored. Now she's going to Ireland to play at the Edinburgh. Is Edinburgh Scotland? I think it's Scotland. Sorry, at the big festival. She's got 24 performances, and I co-wrote the whole play with her. So that's been kind of a fun new area to get into as well. So I just feel like I'm working on a number of projects that are all fulfilling, and they're diverse, and I'm having a lot of fun, and we'll see where it goes.
I love all that, and I think like you're just sort of hearkening back to the beginning of this conversation of working with an unsigned artist that nobody cared about, that nobody knew anything about, but who had a story and talent and something to say, and here you are 15 years, 13 years later, whatever it is, kind of doing the same thing. And, whether or not, and it also sounds like whether or not these people become the next Christina Perri, who cares, right? It's fulfilling, it's fun, you're making great music, and, am I right? Is that the right way to say it?
100%. And what's really cool is that, commerce is really completely out of the picture. I just don't even care. It's like, it's so rewarding to just be part of the process of trying our best to make great art. And to be able to collaborate and work with this, especially the up and coming young talent that's so their perspective on the world, their the way they think in terms of writing lyrics, and the way that their voices, the tone of their voice, it's really fun. I enjoy it.
I'm going to send my 6-year-old daughter to work with you. I think, I don't know if she wants to work with me, so I'll send her your way, and maybe you guys can do something.
It's always tougher when it's your own parent, right? I can't get my kids in my studio hardly ever.
I got my daughter playing piano, and I got a drum set for them, which was probably the worst idea ever, but they love playing. But then when it's like with me, it's like, do your thing, Dad. It's fine. We don't need any help over here. Where's the best place to find you these days?
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, Instagram's a good one. I'm pretty consistent on posting updates of what the things that are going on, the artists I work with, and also my own endeavors. If people want to reach out, they can DM me there.
Drew, thank you so much for taking the time for this. I'm a huge fan. I think you're an amazing talent. One of my favorite people to work with. I'm super proud of one of those people that runs up to people and be like, "Have you heard this song, Jar Hearts, my friend Drew Lawrence?" Like, I love it. I'm a proud friend. I'm happy to be able to call you a friend. And I'm so happy you're able to do this as well. So thank you for making the time.
Well, Chris, the feeling is 100% mutual. I always just love our time together. You're just such an inspiring guy and always so full of positive energy. It's a blast. So I'm honored to be part of the podcast and to be on this conversation today. So thank you for having me, and I look forward to the next time we hang.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening to my conversation with Drew Lawrence about his hit song Jar of Hearts with Christina Perri. Thought there was a lot of great stuff in there for aspiring writers, pros, and just fans. Make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and leave comments below. It really helps as we launch this channel and get things going. See you next time.